Well, we're going to go ahead and get started at 7 o'clock, and we have a number of things on the agenda, my friends. So, we will start with a roll call and a declaration of quorum.
Cynthia Hoyle.
Here.
Annie Adams.
Here.
Leonardo Kovis. Kara Dudek.
Here.
Audrey Ishii. Here. Susan Jones.
Present.
Jeff Marino.
Here.
Craig Schonkweiler. Brad Bennett. Here. Nancy Westcott.
Here.
Lily Wilcock.
Here.
And just a note, if you guys would turn your microphones on when you speak, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Speaking of that, I think we should do introductions. We have some new people here tonight, so let's start over here.
I'm Kara Dudek. I'm Planning Assistant for the Urbana Park District.
I'm Lily Wilcock. I'm Active Transportation Coordinator at the University of Illinois.
And Cynthia Hoyle, I am the current chair, but next meeting, Bill Brown will be taking over again. So I work with MTD, CU Safe Routes to School, and do bicycle education.
I'm Jeff Marino. I am a resident of the city of Urbana, but my day job, I work for the city of Champaign, so kind of a odd
Is a split personality
juxtaposition with that, but just an advocate for biking and pedestrian activities.
So I'm Nancy Westcott. I'm retired from the University of Illinois, and I live a few blocks from here.
Welcome.
I'm Annie Adams. I'm a resident of Urbana, and I am very interested in biking and pedestrian movement.
I'm Sue Jones, also an Urbana resident. I bicycle out to Parkland every day, and I'm interested in bicycling and pedestrian options.
I'm Brad Bennett, Assistant City Engineer. There's two Assistant City Engineers. I'm the one over Drainage Development. Craig Schonkweiler is the one over Transportation. Craig's the one that usually attends these meetings, but I sometimes attend. Specifically, I have the Pedestrian Master Plan is under my project management, so one of the things I'm here tonight is to give an update on that.
And I'm Audrey Ishii, Urbana resident, and I'm interested in improving bicycling and walking, especially for the school faculty and students and parents.
You're now officially our school representative. So, all right, approval of the agenda. I wanted to ask for a quick update, and I've got sort of an announcement under unfinished business for our BPAC survey. It's not going to call for any action, but I just wanted to add that in if anybody has anything else. All right, so a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Are we going to talk about the University Avenue IDOT meeting?
We can do that.
I have a letter I've written that I would like to read, that's all.
Do we want to put that under unfinished business or put it
Just announcements?
under announcements? I think announcements probably.
Perfect. It can be, but you might want to hear the letter first.
And if we can't really take action on it if it's not on the agenda, so that would delay it a month. So she might want to go ahead and send. Yeah, and if we want to take action, we have to put it on the agenda at a time. Motion.
I move to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Approval of the minutes from previous meeting. Motion to approve if there are no changes, corrections.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Public input, well, we can go right on by that one since we have no public here. And on to unfinished business, and the first item on here is the update on the pedestrian master plan, and that is Brad Bennett.
Do you want me to go up front and present from the table, or you want me just to
Do
present?
you have a presentation, or are you just
No, this
verbal?
is going to be really short updates.
No, unless
okay.
you're doing a presentation, we're happy to have you here.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me this evening. So on the pedestrian master plan front, not a lot to report. The Regional Planning Commission is continuing to process the information they collected at the public input meeting along with the surveys. So probably, I would say through the majority of summer, they'll continue to work on that as well as their analysis of the existing conditions. I anticipate this fall we'll probably have some, preliminary recommendations based on that analysis to start sharing with BPAC and getting your input on. So I think the rest of the summer is probably going to be fairly quiet on that. We're in month 5, so we're still in that existing conditions phase on the project schedule. The one thing that did occur this month was we did meet with PACE, which is an advocacy group for disabled individuals. So we had I think it was a meeting last week with them, their staff meeting, where Gabe came in and gave the same presentation that he gave at the public input meetings. We also brought the large wall map, if they had any preferred routes, so that we could document that. We did get a little bit of input from them as far as what some of the challenges, were for their clients, and we're going to incorporate that into the report. So the meeting went well. It wasn't overly long. I think it was like maybe 35 minutes. But we did get their input and look forward to them being part of the process as well. So that's all I had to report for this month.
I would like to request that we get a report on the existing conditions report. When it's done, that doesn't necessarily have to be their staff, but we would like to see that. I would like to see that before the preliminary recommendations.
Sure, we can do that.
Okay.
I'm guessing maybe around the end of August that
Okay.
might be done. So as soon as we have that ready and available, we'll share that with you.
Great. Any other questions, comments, requests? All right, zooming right along, update on concrete sidewalk repair project, Brad Bennett.
Yeah, once again, this is going to be just a short update. Last month, we kind of went through it in a little bit more detail, but I did want to let everybody know we did open bids on the project. A&R Services, which is a division of A&R Mechanical here in Urbana, was the low bidder. They had bid about $77,000 for the work, which is mostly sidewalk replacement, particularly the ramps, bringing them up to ProAg standards. So they actually started on the project today, so hopefully within the next 3 to 5 weeks they'll wrap that up. So we're excited, and hopefully this will be the first of many ramp improvements to come as we try to increase our level of accessibility for everybody.
This isn't sidewalk, but on the bike lane on Washington, I was kind of happy they scraped down this one bump. That's yeah. I was.
Oh, that one, right by Roger Ebert's house? I always went around it because you can't see it, and then you go, whee! Bam, on the other side. It's like invisible, so they ground it down. Oh, goody. Yeah, that's been an
I guess
ugly
that's a
bump.
point too. If you guys, in your cycling activities or even your pedestrian activities, come across,
I should have reported it, but
yeah, problem areas, let us know.
Well, it's an easy dodge if you know.
Yeah.
I was glad to see.
So we always appreciate. We do count on the public to report because unfortunately we don't have enough eyes out there to catch all those things. So when you find them, let us know. We might not get to them immediately, but I guarantee you it goes on a list and eventually it will get addressed.
mm-hmm. Okay. I did have
If
a
we're going to
question.
report something, how do we report it?
Email them,
Who?
call them.
Yeah, I'd say there's a couple ways you can call the front office, and Leslie and the other fine staff members will get you to the appropriate person. We also have the citizens portal on the website that you can, and if you always want, you can send Craig or myself an email.
That's
is
always
fine
been my
too.
path.
Or
Well,
give us a call. It's
I
fine.
think there is a citizens portal
is.
that,
Yes.
just the general public
Yeah.
would find
Yeah.
if they're looking for a way.
Yep.
Mhm.
And I had a question, having talked to some cities who were that were sued successfully by the carpetbagging lawyer team that travels the country on behalf of the ADA. One community I talked with said that their main downfall was their documentation. And so I wanted to ask you if we're keeping clear and careful records of the updates to ramps and other things that we're doing as we go along.
That's a great question and point, and we actually do. It was actually prompted by the sidewalk inventory that the Regional Planning Commission
Good.
did, because as part of that, in order to keep that updated, we actually keep track of every sidewalk ramp, crosswalk that we make any improvements to. And we report that to the Regional Planning Commission annually, so they can actually go out, re-inspect, and adjust the database. So we are tracking that. We also track when the complaints come in, you know, so that we do have a documentation record of who made the request and you know what location was made at, what the issue was.
Yeah, I think responding only to complaints wasn't adequate and to avoid the litigation. It was a consent decree that this community agreed to, and so it's really important that we have records of what we've been doing, and what we have got a plan basically in place now for doing it. So as long as we can show reasonable progress, we'll be okay. And I personally feel like the city's been doing a nice job of replacing ramps. It looks to me like you've prioritized high priority locations like around schools and commercial areas, and then, you know, sort of going out from there, because that's where I see them being replaced most often, parks, things like that, which I think is a reasonable approach. Any other questions? Okay. On to item C, update on brick sidewalk repair project, and Brad Bennett has that too.
Yep, this will be my final report for the evening, I promise. On that one, the news is they're actually close to completion, probably another week or two, and they should have wrapped up all the brick sidewalk repair locations for this year. We'll look to do another annual project next year. We did receive a lot of compliments from residents adjacent to where the sidewalk repair. The only disappointing thing is we're only doing spot patches, so you know, it'd be nice to do an entire block, because the sections they did look really great, but then you transition back to the existing, you know, sidewalk, which doesn't look so great. So we'll continue to plug away at that, and we might actually adjust the way we do it in the future to do a little longer sections, so you can kind of see, you know, kind of the bang for your buck with a little bit more longer stretches of sidewalk rather than real short ones that, you know, kind of stand out compared to the existing condition.
I would like to say they look fantastic, truly fantastic. And when I'm talking to people, everyone's like, these look amazing. And the only thing I would like to say is I wish the city could work with the people in historic East Urbana to teach them how to maintain their sidewalks. I know they don't have to legally do that. But I do know, I was talking to a new resident, and he was like, oh, well, I just came in, and I just, like, he knew how to do it. And so he's like, oh, now it looks great. And I just picked this up, and I was like, I would have no idea how to do that. So if it's possible to just have, you could go through HUNA and just have a meetup with them. They have a Facebook page. And just say, if anyone's interested in learning how to repair, fix, or whatever. And I know there is one person in Urbana who, he specifically does repair his own sidewalk. Like, I saw him doing it last summer, because I thought that's what you're supposed to do. So I, of course, took a picture of him and thanked him. But anyway, that would be my only suggestion, just because I think people do want to take care of their property, and they want to feel proud of it. So
I appreciate it. That's a great suggestion. I think we'll take you up on that. We'll work with the, I think maybe we can extend it to maintenance too, as far as, you know.
That's what I was thinking, is telling people, you know, don't let the weeds grow up between the cracks, and don't let the grass grow.
Because that's what he was doing, is he was like, oh, I just went in and I just did this. And he goes, and all you got to do is pop this up and move it. And I was like, whoa, all right. But yeah, I think in the neighborhood association would probably take pride in it. I know they are having a cleanup day coming up. So they could include, that could be part of it, just learning how to do it, but also telling them it is the city's, you know, this is the city's right of way, and these, you know, just explaining the whole history behind them and how they exist. So
yeah, no, that'd be great. We'd be glad to participate in that.
Yeah.
So what streets did the sidewalk repair occur? The brick?
Actually, probably the best way to get the information to you is I can email it to you. It was numerous
We had a long
streets.
presentation on it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we didn't do any whole block sections this year. It was more areas where the trees had heaved and created trip hazards.
Yeah.
But I'll email that to you tomorrow.
And he did a really good presentation, was it last month?
Yeah.
It was long, in-depth. I kind of loved the crazy details in it. And it was all about the brick repair work and how it was being done. And so if you want to just watch it, you can watch that too.
Yeah, engineers love to share those kinds of details. All right. Then on to the survey, I wanted to announce I have two $25 gift certificates from Heel to Toe for our survey. The questions are all entered into the city's account, and I have emailed a couple of times asking how do will you pass that down to him? Or is it to you? I don't know which way somebody was keeping track of the gift certificates for us. Okay. And so we would like to know, how do we now launch the survey? We're ready to launch, and everything's ready to go. So Kevin's the one who was sort of handling that, and I emailed him a couple of times. So if you could help us by inquiring so that we can get that out to the public, and we would be happy to help. I think all of the members will be happy to help with promoting it through various social media and listservs, and get some feedback. So I would like to do that. We'd hope to do it during Bike Month, but we can do it this summer if we can get it out there.
Will do.
Okay. Anything else about that?
So Cynthia, it's all essentially done.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
They just need to go through and check it. My intern entered all the questions into the city's survey account. They have their own SurveyMonkey account. We needed to do that because you can only do 10 questions in a free account, and so my understanding was the city went ahead and paid for an account, which isn't that much for a 1-year subscription. They had to have an account or she couldn't have entered it, so. Okay, well, Leo was going to do a Bike to Work and Bike to School Day information that was on the agenda, but Leo's not here. So I guess we'll delay that till next month. And I have a short item, and I was going to pass around some of our handouts about the Let's Get Rolling Earn a Bike program, and I might not have enough copies. We'll see. I made 10. I think that might be just enough here. So what I'm passing around to you are flyers and the enrollment form that we created for the program. And we're working with Don Moyer Boys and Girls Club and Champaign County Bikes. Also, the Urbana Park District is providing the lake house for our 2 on-bike classes that we're going to be doing. So they graciously allowed us free use of the boathouse in the northeast parking lot. And we're still trying to confirm with the bike project for the first night when we're going to assemble and work on the bikes. So the Boys and Girls Club is very excited about this program. They have, I forget how many kids he said. It was a large number of kids that they have in programs, not only in Champaign and Urbana, but also I think in Mahomet and Rantoul. And so we tell them, based on the number of instructors we have, we can do 6 to 8 students because we want to have 1 instructor per every 2 kids if possible. And we're going to be doing it July 11, 12, and 13, from 3 to 5. And I thought we'd need a longer time period for the maintenance class, but he advised us that their attention span might not go for more than 2 hours on the maintenance part. Once we're on the bikes, it might be a little different, but that part he felt like might be better at a 2-hour stretch. So I've got some more coordination to do in terms of getting the bikes there, getting some more people lined up to help with the mechanical part. Kevin Garcia and I have both indicated that we're great with the on-bike part, but the bike maintenance section is not our forte. And so we'll want some more people who can help with that. So that would be on the 11th. I feel like the first class we should do the bike part because that's what this is all about. And they need the bikes for their classes. So we'll do that first. I think I'll go ahead and try and get their helmets on them so that if they want to try their bike out, they can also do that. And then we also talked with him as we were talking. they hand out 200 to 300 bikes from the police department to their kids every year. So they're very interested in trying to provide them with more education, and they, as he described it, try and get the bikes up to safe riding condition by whatever means they can. So having some maintenance skills would be good too. And so he wanted to have a bike rodeo the last day of their summer camp, which is August 4th, and I will not be here, so I have to have someone else who's willing to be in charge of that. And he wanted to have that turn into a family event with all the parents and have the younger kids come in the morning and do the bike rodeo there at the Don Moyers Club. So I think that's a really wonderful opportunity for us to develop that partnership further with the Boys and Girls Club to help them, because their goal is to provide the kids with these bicycles to give them access to things that they want to do that they currently have trouble accessing because they don't have transportation options, various classes, after-school programs, etc., that if they have a bike, they can more easily get back and forth to. So for them, this is about transportation and for their kids, and I think that that's a great opportunity for us to create a community partnership with them and to help their kids out in the process. So I wanted to let everybody know about that, and I'll answer whatever questions I can. It's a evolving program. This will be our first shot doing it here in the community, and so they're partnering with us to create a program. Yes, Audrey.
What are the age group?
The age we are going to do this with is, I believe, 12 to 18 is the group that we're working with for this. I told him we can do middle school, but I suspect that he will be encouraging the kids that he thinks would benefit the most from the program. I think he already had some kids in mind that he was based on need that he was going to recommend the program to. You saw from the enrollment form that we're asking for them to give us some information about why they want the bike. We've also created a pledge form. We're going to ask them that when they get the bike, they can't resell it for a year, and if they don't want it anymore for whatever reason, to please return it to Champaign County Bike so that we can reuse it. We would like for them to use the bike. We don't see this as a program for creating a new online business to resell bikes. If they want to do that, there's an opportunity to get free bikes from the police department and fix them up. And we'd be happy to have kids do that. In other communities, that's what these programs do, in fact. In Indianapolis, they have a wonderful program, and the kids who are in it have an account at the bike co-op there. And as they fix bikes, they can sell them, and they have an account that some of the proceeds go into so that they can use to purchase additional things at the co-op. So it's a program that gives them the opportunity to learn, sales skills, business management skills, money management, etc., and leadership skills, which, I think that it would be a fabulous thing for us to have here. But we're going to start small and try and build from there, because I think there's a real opportunity for kids to develop skills from this kind of a program.
I was recently up in Chicago talking bike commuting with a forum of experts, essentially, and we were all talking about why we became bike commuters, and there were two big learnings, I think, from the meetup. And the one big learning was, and it is actual fact, is bike commuting is everyone's favorite way to get to work. And it's not just, it is actually fact. People are happiest when they bike to work. But the second thing was, the people who were biking, continuously biking, learned to bike as a child and took up biking as children and continued to do it. And I think that's something the city of Urbana should really take to heart, that if we do want people to move, if we do want the mode shift that we're discussing, moving by bus, being pedestrians, or biking, we really need to make sure that it's really easy for people to do that when they're younger. And I think this program here really helps encourage that and says this is a value of our community and this is something we're interested in making sure people can do. So thank you, Cynthia, for doing all the work on this and putting this together.
You're welcome. Any other questions, comments? Yeah, I was going to share, I posted recently on Facebook, I was looking at a video that came out of the Netherlands about bicycling, and they interviewed people who used bikes for transportation and why. And one of my favorite quotes, which is how I feel about it, is as this young woman said, bicycling is like flying through the city, and they get to see things they would never see if they were doing it by any other mode. And so I will be going there this summer. I get to go to Amsterdam this summer, so I'll try and provide you all with a little sort of pictorial essay of my trip when I get back, because the company I work for has now hired people in Europe, and one of them is also does tours, so I'm going to meet up with him, and I told him I wanted to see bike infrastructure in Amsterdam. But it will also involve eating good food and drinking beer, which is an important part of visiting Amsterdam. So.
I do know that Trek and Schramm were flying aldermen from Chicago over there. And
good.
yeah, and it was very transformational for the aldermen to actually be in these spaces and to say, oh, this is, and so the 48th ward in Chicago is actually the aldermen from that ward, which is my old ward. They are going to be implementing a pilot program that will become a model probably for the rest of the United States, which is pretty exciting. But it was he was transformed. It was transformational for him. He was just like, do you know what it's like, Annie? And I was like, I've seen videos. So yeah, so just let you know, I mean, if you might be able to get in on something like that, and I know you're probably going for pleasure as well, but that could be cool.
I have one comment that just occurred to me. At this age group with girls, I will just tell you that, in particular, African American girls, if they have braids in their hair, it's really uncomfortable in bike helmets, and they often do not like wearing bike helmets. And I think that this, I mean, I'm just stating that as kind of a fact, and I don't know what can be done about it, but I think it would be helpful to kind of observe what's going on and to think about this and to maybe figure out a way to forestall this. I've talked to bike shops about this before, and the basic comment is
that.
nothing can be done, but
Well, that's not true. We ran into this problem with our after-school program at the middle school and in some other places that we were working. And so when we still had a grant, Safe Routes to School grant, we special ordered extra large helmets. And most of the time, the extra large helmets will work with them. We have to have a helmet on students to do our class. When I talked with Don Moyer about the bike rodeo and teaching the kids bike safety, I asked him about whether or not he would like for us to work on a helmet distribution program for his kids, and he said the more important thing for them is getting the kids bikes and teaching them how to use them safely, that the helmet is a whole nother layer of issues for them to deal with, and he also said, by the way, when they give them helmets, that they have done things like use it to use their head as a battering ram in the front window of the Don Moyers Club. So, you know, the things that kids decide to do with their helmets are things that we perhaps would not even have imagined, testing out their helmet on the window, the front door. So for him, that was really, that was a secondary issue. It's a primary issue to some of our healthcare providers in the community, so I thought I could get one of the major healthcare providers to donate helmets for the kids, but I think teaching them the safety on the bike. When we are doing it, however, they have to wear a helmet for insurance purposes. You know, and we also, the enrollment, we have a liability waiver form that we have to have the kids and their parents sign to give them the bike additionally. So it's absolutely an issue. It's a huge issue for the Black community, and a topic that comes up with some regularity, that getting people on bikes is more important than getting on people on bikes with helmets. And if that's going to result in them not bicycling, that the health benefits of bicycling outweigh the risks. That said, I will say I am a devoted helmet wearer, having dealt with this issue myself and my husband as well. It's like a seatbelt. When you need it, you really need it, and it might not be very often, but it can save your life. So I'm a big advocate of wearing helmets, and when I was in Sweden 3 years ago, I noted they are wearing helmets a lot in Sweden, which was very interesting. In the Netherlands and Germany, they don't wear them as much. And they have a very low traumatic brain injury rate. And we also don't assess brain injury, traumatic brain injuries very accurately, because the number one cause outside of falls for traumatic brain injuries are in cars. So it would really be, we'd prevent more bad head injuries by wearing helmets in our cars than we would on bikes. So, we have to be rational in our assessment and our, our advocacy and our emphasis demanding that people should always wear helmets. I think it's a good idea, and I will certainly recommend it, and it has to be done for all of our classes, but there are other things that improve safety as much or more than helmet use. So this is an issue that's come up a lot, and creates friction in the bicycling world. The whole helmet discussion's fraught with emotional landmines, and so if you want to cause a fight, go to a bike listserv and talk about helmets. Yeah, it's one of the hot topics. Yes, Audrey.
Kara's demonstrating a non-helmet friendly. Is it possible that the children who work in the Earn a Bike program could take an active role in the rodeo, in the bike rodeo, as
Yes.
some kind of...
Yes. He said, in fact, that he was going to get old. He asked me how old they had to be to help, and I said, well, we can do high school kids. And he had some kids that he thought would be very, very interested in helping, that they are very engaged in helping the younger kids. And so when you're advocating safe cycling skills to the little kids, that encourages you. So absolutely, I think he was thinking not only those kids, but other kids in that age group he was going to recruit to help with the bike rodeo. So yeah, I think that would be a lot of fun for them. And maybe they can even demonstrate. That might be fun.
So what is the status of the Safe Routes to School project funding? Just could you give us
that's
a
a great
quick
question.
update?
We don't know. There's no word, and I've seen no indication. In the past, this was dependent on the governor deciding when he was going to announce release of funds, and given the dynamic with the governor and the legislature at this time, I don't expect an announcement about Safe Routes to School funding anytime soon, unfortunately. Yeah, so we're operating with zero funding. The funding for the bikes was CCB and other organizations' promotion of our local fundraising during Bike Month. That's where we got the money for the bikes. And I believe Jeff said he had a donation of helmets from Bell Helmets for the program. We have lights. I have locks left over. I bought a whole bunch of stuff up to keep the program going, but the locks that I have are really small cable locks, and I'm concerned some of these kids, where they're going to be locking their bikes up, is outside an apartment complex, and it really only takes a good strong pair of wire cutters to cut this off. So I was thinking about before the program, if we could find a way to buy better U-locks for the kids, because I'm really concerned their bikes will be stolen if we don't provide them with better locks. So if anybody has any ideas about who might be able to donate and help us buy some, I haven't bought a good U-lock in a while, but my memory serves me that we're talking at least $20 a lock to get a reasonable U-lock, and so that's 6 to 8 of those is a little more funding than we currently have. Maybe CCBI can talk to them about it, but we might be able to get one of the bike shops to give us a discount. Any other questions? Thoughts? We will be looking for volunteers to help. If you want to volunteer, we'll be happy to have your engagement, and it'll be a small group. I think it'll be fun working with this group. So, announcements, and I know Annie has an announcement.
I went to the University Avenue IDOT presentation that was at the MTD, what do you call that, the MTD place?
It was at the administrative offices, 1101 East University.
Yes, it
In
was.
Urbana.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. Yes. So I went there, and I walked into the room, and it was a bunch of, just the road was laid out, and I get very overwhelmed and confused when I look at drawings like that. They just very much confuse me. So I was trying to ask them for details and what it would be like, and I got information out of them. IDOT's done a ton of work. I mean, they have had to go business to business. They've worked with the university. They've had to talk to Carl, like the hospitals. They've had to go to all these different places. And like there was one where I was just laughing. It was like hot asphalt. Like, why are you marking hot asphalt on this? Like, I didn't realize it was actually like it's an actual material that. Yeah, everyone's looking at me shaking their heads. Yeah, it's an actual material. It's not going to be hot asphalt when it's installed. Like, I was like, is this going to be like lava? Like, do people like, I don't know, yeah. Yeah, I know.
It's a traffic calming mechanism.
It's just kind of like, I was like, this is so over my head. And, you know, they like, Carl, for example, is going to shut off a couple entrances to their parking lots and things like that. So I just got out of them what they were going to be doing. I think they want to put in, I picked up a piece of paper. They said when I left, there was these flashing yellow arrow left turn signals, and there was another piece of paper that they said, you know, if you want to submit comments, you can fill out this piece of paper and mail it in. So I said, old school. So I said, okay.
But isn't there an online option too?
I have no idea.
There was an email contact given in the announcement.
Okay.
But I don't know if the public all received that.
Yeah, I didn't know if people knew. I mean, like because I just kept bugging them so much about like, I would like this, and what about that? I think they were finally like, what if we just tell this woman she can just fill this thing out and mail it in? So I was like, all right, thanks, I'm leaving. So then I just kind of thought about what I was interested in that area, and so I wrote a letter. Dear IDOT District 5, thank you for the 1.4-mile safety improvement project proposed for University Avenue, U.S. Route 45-150, an important road for residents of Urbana and Champaign, ensuring connectivity to our marquee parks, the Hospital District, the University of Illinois, Urbana and Champaign's downtown districts, and the newly developing neighborhood with dense, low-rise apartment complexes, restaurants, and retail stores. Studies show traffic circles, roundabouts, and slower traffic speeds increase safety for all users by reducing motor vehicle collisions as well as pedestrian and cyclist fatalities. Bonus: all three of these design features raise property values and increase the likelihood drivers, cyclists, and pedestrians will stop and shop on that street, resulting in increased tax revenue for the state of Illinois and the city of Urbana. Please consider lowering vehicular traffic speeds to a maximum of 25 miles per hour. adding a roundabout at Broadway on University Avenue, allowing for safe, swift, and convenient access to Crystal Lake Park for all users, especially parents with small children on foot and on bike. Adding roundabouts and traffic circles at all intersections on this 1.4-mile section of University Avenue. This allows for steady, continuous car traffic, not slowing, stopping, then starting again vehicular movement that traffic lights inevitably create. Traffic lights make car drivers feel they are competing with each other rather than cooperating with each other. In addition, cyclists and pedestrians can be assured of safe, swift, and convenient crossing at all intersections on University Avenue. And the final suggestion is implement an innovative traffic way pilot program with a network of roundabouts and traffic circles that would be a model street for other high-density, multimodal urban areas throughout the state. Lastly, hundreds, if not thousands, of new residents are moving into transit-oriented developments on University Avenue. These new neighbors will primarily commute, shop, and play on foot, by bike, and bus. It would be wonderful to welcome them to our fine cities with infrastructure to match their needs. That's it.
I think that's a great letter, and addresses the major points we had raised with them about speed being a factor, a huge factor in roadway fatalities, and that lowering the, as we call it in the traffic world, 85th percentile speed would dramatically improve safety along this roadway. So I would encourage everybody, if we could perhaps put the contact information to send comments in, and the time period for doing so in our meeting notes. I think that that would be really helpful, and maybe we could also post it, some of us, in our social media opportunities and on listservs, so that I was not able to go to the meeting, and I would like to give them input too. So, was anybody else able to attend besides Annie? Oh, you got to go? Did you have any thoughts about it?
I was mostly concerned.
Did you turn on your microphone? Thank you.
I guess I was mostly concerned with the 5 Points intersection and how that was going to be fixed, because there's going west on University, there's you can't see the walk sign if you're on the sidewalk. So that was mainly what, and they are fixing that.
Oh, good.
But,
Oh, good.
that was my main concern at the time.
Okay. Anybody else? Any thoughts or comments?
Just one
Yeah.
question. Annie, I missed the meeting, but in your letter you said there's people that are moving into transit-oriented developments along University Avenue. Are those designated by IDOT, or I wasn't aware of any transit-oriented.
TODs?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
We
That was the
actually
question.
call it
I was
mobility enhanced development here, because transit-oriented development generally denotes access to fixed rail or subways, which we do not have.
okay.
And so we've always called it mobility enhanced development, because
And
it's designed to give people multiple mobility options.
So is that something that MTD would designate spots along University Avenue and then have like enhanced bus pickup to help coordinate with people that are living?
This was part of the discussion during the My Plan process, that we did a report on mobility enhanced development, and there were particular parts of the community we identified as lending themselves to this, and that there were infill opportunities. So for MTD, they don't have the ability to designate anything, because they don't have any land use opportunities or options. But what they base their bus stop frequency and amenities on ridership and density. There's a very clear correlation, and there's nationally standards that say, you know, if you've got this many people per acre, your transit frequency will be every hour. That's, I think, 8 dwelling units per acre you can count on service every hour. When you start getting more than that, you're talking maybe 30 minutes. And as it goes up from there, you get down to, 10 minutes and 5 minutes. And on campus, of course, because we've got such really high densities similar to inside of the loop. In Chicago, we have very high frequency, plus the students pay extra for that. So they don't have zones per se, but they have areas that they have much higher frequency transit in, and that's generally based on the density because that's where you have more ridership.
So there's no, so that was a question I had. Is there any, like when development is happening, because the Champaign side of University Avenue is Champaign's, and I know that there's a
own the
lot of
street,
low
which is
density.
different.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Champaign Street, not the Illinois Department of Transportation Street. And so that was my question, was if the housing along those on the Urbana side, are we saying, normally when you build housing, you say, oh, for every one apartment, you have to have one parking spot. And from what I can tell, that does not look to be, we don't, and that's what I was trying to ask Kevin about last time, was that I think you don't even have to build any parking spots. I don't know. I have no idea. And so this is what I'm trying to figure out what the right terminology is and if there is an actual plan, because I assume there is a plan in the city of Urbana when we passed the bike master plan and the pedestrian plan. We're trying to increase multimodal, usage. So I'm just, that was my exact question with this letter.
Yeah, it's a little bit confusing because I know for Champaign, and Jeff can clarify this further, they have that no minimum parking requirement in the university and downtown district. But these apartments are built north of university, so they're essentially really right outside of the university
Right.
district.
Well, another thing to consider would be, the Urbana has the bike plan and the pedestrian plan. They could do an overarching transportation plan that also would identify land uses, and then you could identify nodes that would have, connectivity between bike, enhanced sidewalks, bike lanes, MTD, and any other, enhanced mobility for people that have impairments. And then through those nodes, you could have higher density land uses that would maybe not normally be allowed in certain areas. So you'd have high density apartments around these nodes so that higher amounts of people could access those transportation issues. So that would be one way to think about it. But
Because Champaign has that in their Champaign moving forward transportation
Right.
plan identified high density nodes that were to have enhanced mobility.
And then, as the comp plan and zoning map get updated, then they can incorporate those land uses into the zoning. But yeah, your point about also reducing parking because people in theory would have access to these other alternative modes of transportation.
If you have parking in a building, it increases the cost of your living unit, and especially if you don't have a car or drive a car. And we're trying to encourage 40,000 people that come here every year not to bring cars.
Right.
So
And
it's a win-win-win.
It's a much more efficient land use pattern than, so.
Audrey.
Well, I wasn't able to attend the meeting either, and I'm really sorry that I wasn't because I had a number of questions. One is that I heard that they cannot design for the future conditions, for future population, but rather only for what's there right now, which is probably a problem because I think there's a lot of development going on and the populations are coming in. I did solicit some comments from neighbors, and and some people go up there to go to the blood bank. They cross the street, and they're troubled because there's no opportunities for crossing. There's no traffic control. There's no island in the middle. You really can't make it across. We know someone was killed on Fifth and University, and that was in daytime, and I don't think alcohol was even involved. And so I'd really like to see more detail about these plans. I feel terrible that I missed that opportunity. I was out of town, but
I'd say the one thing they told me was they said it can only be about safety. That's the only thing we can talk about with you, and that's the only thing that we're doing is safety.
well, that is a huge topic. I mean, with that population, and as you said, without cars, I even got requests for bike lanes, which most of us have said, no way, no bike lanes. But there are so many people, and if they aren't going to have cars, we need to look at how there could be biking up there.
They're going to bike down University whether there's a bike lane or not.
Mhm. I have seen people do it, but only the very brave.
Particularly at the beginning of the school year. There's a lot of cyclists on University all of a sudden.
And are we like trying to get people to bike from downtown Champaign and downtown Urbana to their homes, or are we trying to get people to buy a car, drive a car, park a car, and rip up the roads? Like, what are we trying to get people to do, and what are we trying to build for? And me and there was another woman there at the time I was there. We both were like bike stuff, bike infrastructure, and I think they're not doing a side path. They said it's not wide enough to be called a side path. I think a side path is 8 feet, and then
Minimum.
yeah, so
And they won't call it
okay.
a use path or side path unless it's
Has to be
10 foot.
10 to,
Yeah, okay.
be
So yeah,
multi-use.
and I can't remember now if they said it would be a 5-foot or an 8-foot path that they're putting in. That's the one thing I
I
can't
think it's
remember.
5.
It's gonna be 8 foot.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, wherever they have enough right of way, but if they're limited on right of way, at a minimum, it'll be 5 foot.
Okay.
wide, which is kind of what the current ProAg or 88.
Right.
is for a 5 foot wide sidewalk.
Because they're having to buy property.
Correct. They're requiring right of way.
Yeah, Annie and I had this conversation, and I said, historically, I think what happened on this road was it was originally a 2-lane. They didn't have enough right-of-way to have a really wide road. When they expanded the road, then that didn't leave much right-of-way for the sidewalks. So I'm sure we gave up right-of-way space that could have been used for pedestrians to widen the road when that occurred. And now, in order to add in more space for pedestrians, they're having to acquire more property, which is a painful, inexpensive process, and not one that is lightly undertaken by governmental entities.
My understanding too, is they're gonna remove some of the trees and the parkways and try to improve the line of sight. But they're supposed to replace them, at least I think 1 for 1 or maybe greater.
Yeah.
They've done studies that show if you increase the perception of risk, which is what trees do, cars drive slower, and everyone is safer. And if you decrease the perception of risk by taking out the trees and by making it seem like it's a fast, I don't have to pay attention space, more people and there's more car accidents, and then there's more people that get injured. So that's just kind of sad to hear.
I asked about the trees, and they said they would not be replacing them.
Well, I think at the locations they're taking down and go back, but I think elsewhere in the corridor or someplace else in the city, they're supposed to put a tree up and compensate for the loss, but I mean, it's not true compensation because those trees are a lot larger than the 1 to 2 inch diameter tree you would get as a replacement. So, I mean, obviously our arborist, Mike Rupp, is not very happy about that. In fact, he said a lot of trees were put back in 1975. They did quite a bit of the tree planting now along the university. So those trees are fairly mature.
Can the city request trees in certain locations not be removed?
I'll have to check. I don't think we have authority where we can change them.
No, I don't think we have authority, but I think all we have on any of this is request.
Yeah, I think we've been working with them.
Okay.
at a minimum.
Okay,
I mean, there's still going to be some trees.
okay. Well, that will not be popular, as the school district has found out at Yankee Ridge Elementary School, with ugly, unhappy letters to the editor, even though I'm sure they did their best to publicize it. People are upset when the trees get cut down. So is there anything else, any other announcements? We have time for some more. New other announcements? Yes.
Does BPAC want to send a letter to IDOT, or is that not a thing that we do? And would that be really impossible for all of us to actually agree?
Well, we did do that a few months ago. We asked staff to send a letter, and they did send a letter on our behalf. And that's where we requested that they take a look at lowering speeds and get public input sooner rather than later. So we have we can ask them to do that for us. I don't think we want to wordsmith it if we do that. but I think the things that we've been talking about, generally, we did request. And I think since only one of us got to go to the meeting, the rest of us are not terribly well informed about all of what they were. Oh, okay. Okay. And do you know what the schedule is in terms of input and contracting and all that? I think they're still acquiring property, so I'm guessing it would be a while.
I'm not sure if it had anything on the schedule. But
Okay.
it does show, it does color code show where they're requiring right away.
Okay. Yeah, I think all of us would like to look at that.
Annie, I forgot, did you have a specific speed in mind that you suggested lowering?
I suggested 25. I asked them, I said, the current speed limit is 35, which essentially means 42. That's what most people will drive if it's 35. And I said, right now, it's just kind of competitive when people drive down that street. They're trying to, even though there's just a red light that you're all racing to. So 25 was what I was suggesting. And they were, of course, like, no, that's not possible. So that, and I did notice Bill is actually sitting here. Bill posted something about talking to them about it being a hospital district and speed limits for a hospital district, which I know nothing about. But we do have multiple. It is the hospital district of Urbana. That's where they all are. So, simply put. So I'm not sure what other cities do in those areas, but that was the best idea I could come up with as a compromise, was essentially what I was trying to find.
Well, I was interested because we did have last year as one of our recommendations that we voted on was lowering speed limits throughout the city. There were just a couple things that we actually voted on as a commission. So writing a letter as a commission, it seems that it should be possible to do that.
Is it too late for public input?
No, we can certainly recognize you, especially given that you're going to be chairing the meeting next month.
Yeah, I thought I'd better see what I was getting into here. I talked to one of the engineers there, and Craig happened to be there at the same time I was there, about lowering the speed limit. Again, we brought it up during council meeting when they presented, what was that, 6 months, no, probably a year ago or so.
Yep.
And they said that actually Urbana Police Department said that it would be hard to enforce, which was, I don't know, it seemed like we could figure out it couldn't be any harder than some of the other things we have laws against that we don't enforce. But
It's
so
not about enforcement.
yeah, so that seemed a little off, but then they said that also the volumes just wouldn't handle it, but I guess you'd have to look at the model, see how the model reacts, and see.
In
how
Chicago,
far
they're doing
traffic-
road diets on streets with that much traffic on them, so.
Right. That was the question I had for them, because I've seen them take streets in Chicago that were built for 80,000 cars a day. You know, there's like this was built for XYZ number of cars a day. It actually has this many cars a day. We're taking out 2 lanes. We're putting in, we're putting in either a 2-way bikeway or other things. So that was my question to them, was how many, I said, what do you, and this is when I got the safety answers. I said, what do you see the future of this street being? Do we want more cars on the street? Do we want less cars on the street? What's the idea here? And they said, this is just about safety. And they did do car counts. The car counts are about 21,000 a day. And then they did do pedestrian and other counts, but they didn't have those numbers off the top of their head. But they did do those. Not that really, because right now that space is not currently built for people. It's very much built for people in cars. So.
Yeah, I'd like to see that proceed a little bit more if possible. I mean, if they haven't done a model, I know that there's not many other options besides University, unless you can go to Bradley, because Green Street people aren't going to probably choose Green Street. They might choose Springfield, but even that isn't going to get them there any faster. So that might be one of the things where it could work better in Chicago if they had other options and it kind of disperses the traffic. But if it's just...
It was in the heart of downtown, right in the loop. There was no other option. Yeah. It was basically the question I wanted to ask them was, how many cars is this street? What I should have asked them was, how many cars is this street built for? Because they will know those numbers. And it was probably, my guess, built for 40,000 cars a day. It's a 4-lane road. So it was probably built for a minimum 40, and right now it has 21,000, which might sound like a lot, but
And it kind of depends how regular. I mean, if it's just for a few hours in the morning and evening, but it is. I think it's pretty regular during the day. I did have a couple other. One thing positive that came from that public input, which I also mentioned in that post, is they decided to. Told Craig that they would install the video detection for bicycle crossings. Did you guys talk about that earlier at all? But they said that each of the signalized intersections they'll install the video detection for bicycles to get across, because right now it's all loop stuff that doesn't pick up bicycles very good. And then the other thing I wanted to ask about, I remember this University Avenue corridor study that was done in 2006.
Yes.
Did they use that? Or did they read this before they actually started drawing plans?
I actually participated in that study. I don't think that focused really that much on the road. It was more of the corridor and land use along the corridor. It focused more on like the streetscape elements and, the facade of the buildings along it to create kind of a unified. I don't think it actually. It has some ties on with some transportational nodes, but didn't really get into, I think, a lot of the.
It does
And
talk
we
a
weren't
lot about nodes and connections to villages, but it also says stuff like implement bike connections that utilize north-south roadways to link University Avenue to the rest of the community, develop safe pedestrian crossings at major intersections along University Avenue, provide additional transit service connecting the corridor to the rest of the community. So,
I was on
hope
the
that
steering
they-
committee. I also got included in there that we should revisit and update that plan in 5 years, because it was clear that the land use and the use of the street were changing. And in the time period since that plan was passed, the number of fatalities for pedestrians has increased rather significantly. So I would love to revisit that plan. I think our problem right now is lack of funding for that to happen. But I think if we could get the funding to do it, the other thing that we could do is write the scope in such a way that there's more focus on bikes and peds. The problem with that study was the original scope had been done so long ago that it didn't have in their provision for collecting data the way that we would like to have done on pedestrians and bicyclists. And so that component was not a strong part of this plan. It really did focus on the other things and on vehicular traffic. So by the time we did it, these things take so long. By the time we did the plan, it was clear that we wanted to do a slightly different plan than the scope that we had funding for, and we weren't able to do that. But I got in there to update it, but now we lack funding to do it. So that's something that if we get the Carl settlement and we're looking for ways to spend money, that
It's
is an
already been spent.
opportunity.
Don't even think about it. But it's just frustrating when you get $180,000 from the state to do a plan, and then how much do they actually use it when they do the plan? So that's, it's always
I
the case
agree.
with all.
I agree with you.
Thank you.
So, any other announcements? Yes, Audrey.
I mean, basically, it's like a deadly moat, around, it's making this town inaccessible across
It
that. And
divides the
I know
city.
that it has been a very hot political topic in the past, and for some reason that died down as other priorities came up. But, and I realize they're only interested in safety. Well, of course, it is safety. That's
That's
it's
why
a
we're doing
deadly
it.
moat.
Right,
Yes.
exactly.
And so I think that we should be able to work with the state to achieve some of the goals that were in that plan, while keeping strictly focused on safety from their point of view. And perhaps the city needs to put some, shine some light on that. For example, the potential for economic development in some of those near 5 Points is wonderful if that was accessible and could even be seen. Right now, you can't even see much of the businesses that are back there that have really fascinating opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, I consider it a car sewer. When I'm driving on that road, I am like, go. I'm not going to try to stop and go left or try to cross over and go to the Dairy Queen or whatever. I'm like, go. I can't even see actually what businesses are on that road because I'm concentrating so hard on just trying, on getting through. Yeah, so it is just, it's a real loss. And also, I would never bike over there. I would never walk. I would never I tried, if you try to go to different places, you have to get through University Avenue to get to different places, but I avoid University Avenue if I'm biking or walking at all costs. Just it's, and that's the other thing that's upsetting to me about them taking out the trees is it's already ugly. Let's not make it more, basically you want interesting spaces for people to walk and bike in, and that attracts people. And if we take out the trees, we're making less interesting places for people to be. So that's my 2 cents.
All right. Well, I think we will go on to future topics, and I think that perhaps we would want to put on future topics a letter to IDOT about University Avenue based on the discussion here tonight. I will not be here next month, but you will have new leadership to take a hold of that and run. So you all can work on that. Are there other future topics people want to have on the agenda? And they do email us again and ask, but does anybody? Yes. Will Leo present the Bike to Work school day? Is your mic on?
Will Leo
There you go.
present the Bike to Work school day information that he was going to
Yeah, I
present?
think we
would
should
be
ask
my-
if he's going to be here, if he will do that.
I saw that Cynthia and Jeff presented the annual report to the study committee, or of the council of the
Yes.
whole. Committee of the whole, rather. And they did mention a couple of the topics that we intend, I think we agreed to focus on this year. One was more, and it was even mentioned in the News Gazette today, one being a area-wide bike registration plan.
That was in the newspaper today?
Yes.
I missed it.
And it was just a tiny little thing. And that was the highlight they picked on. And then, and I know that a question came up for Lily about where the figures
That's
came
right.
from.
I did say I was going to
That was
ask about
Bill.
that. They were skeptical about the figure you gave for processing per bike of lost bikes and wanted to know how that was calculated. And I said, I do
yeah.
not know.
For the dollar amount for, are you talking about the number for processing the $60,000 to $70,000 a year?
Yes.
Oh, that's actually a mystery to me. That came from University Parking.
Well, then we may never know.
University Parking has assured me that they will release their report when they get approval from their superiors, which they're getting a new boss soon. So.
Well, when you have that information, will you
yeah,
share it with us?
absolutely.
I told them I felt
I'm
like
sure
that
that would
was
make
the
University Parking
university's
very
cost.
happy.
Yeah, I thought it was the university's cost figure, and that perhaps the
Yeah.
city of Urbana's costs were not so high per bike. But
Our process is, I would have to say that our process is significantly more expensive for doing it and much more labor intensive. But I would love to see where University Parking got that number too as well. So I assure you I will be on top of asking them when they can release that.
all right, thank
Yeah.
you. We appreciate you staying on top of that.
And then the other thing I think we talked about lobbying for to see something happen would be residential speed limit lowering, which would require, well, we could start with a presentation in the near future.
Yeah, I was thinking we might be able to have that conversation as part of our pedestrian plan, that when we get information on the locations where pedestrians have said they most want to walk and where people feel the least comfortable walking, that I think some of that information along with bike plan information gives us really solid rationale for designating certain locations, maybe even areas for additional study and looking at lowering speed limits. And so I was thinking that could be part of our I personally was hoping that our pedestrian plan would give us an opportunity to have that discussion and to talk about specific locations for crossings For example, Annie and a number of people have mentioned to me crossing Washington, east of Vine, that there are a lot of pedestrians crossing, particularly at Anderson and other places, and there's no crosswalk designated, and blah, blah. There are a number of issues there. And so I thought, I feel like the pedestrian plan is going to give us a whole bunch of information that we can then use to further that conversation, was what I was hoping that we could do this next year. Because I think to just say we want to talk about lowering speed limits doesn't give us a good framework for the conversation to forward it on to city council, whereas if we have, these are the places people say they really don't feel safe and they're walking a lot and they really need us to address it, and we have these bike routes and these schools or whatever destinations, and so then we can say, let's take a look at this and do a study and talk about lowering the speed limit.
Also, Brad, isn't there a Transportation Policy Commission or traffic and?
There's a traffic commission.
And would they deal with speed limits at all?
Yeah, they have, I think they're the body that sets.
As to approve it.
Okay. So ultimately, would BPAC or somebody's staff need to make a presentation to that commission? And
Yep. Yep. Which is another reason to have a really good rationale for making that recommendation. Yeah.
Well, I think the survivability of pedestrians who are hit by a car is a pretty good rationale, and those graphs have been worked up quite dramatically already. But yeah, local rationale would be good too.
Yeah, I agree with you. I would like for us to pursue that further this next year. I also talked about the request to have someone who does our bike and ped events and planning, et cetera, to work with the other, with the city and the university and MTD, put some funding together. There was discussion about it, but we didn't have any, there wasn't any sentiment expressed in terms of what direction. I think that that's something we're going to need to talk about more again. Yeah, if there was a way that we can document our need for that more thoroughly, I think that would be helpful. We have the League of American Bicyclists recommendation. When we get the pedestrian plan done, we can do a walk friendly, put in our application to be designated as a walk friendly community. Perhaps we'll get feedback from them that also provides us with some additional support for having a person. Because right now we've got a variety of staff doing this as part of their job duties, among many job duties, and there's no one person in charge, which makes it difficult because you have to know who to talk to about what, and sometimes even among staff it's not entirely clear who's supposed to be doing what, because with events no one's assigned to do all the event work. It kind of varies based on the event. Anything else? Are we ready to adjourn? All right. Well, welcome again to our new member, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Right. We stand adjourned. Thank you for coming.